terms of Dvandva. So that has to be given up. For the Hindu Varnashrama, that is why the rishis have prescribed this Varnashrama Dharma. Whatever Varna we are born into, that has been given to us as a prasada. That prasada buddhi I have, I'm removing one aspect of kartrutva. Then the second is, all right, this karma has been landed in my lap. Now, how do I give up this karya, execution of action? How do I give up doership in execution of action? That Krishna has said so far. Elimination, do it as a service to the Lord. By doing it as a service to the Lord, the doership associated with the execution of action is also eliminated. Now, so many times we do karma being motivated by some desire, fruits of action. If I do this, I will get that. So by doing this, I will get that. Therefore, I want to do this. That is kamya. How do I overcome doership in this aspect of kamya? Then you say, okay, I will not anticipate any benefit for me. Whatever comes, I will take it as an Ishvara Prasada. Those three. And so in effect, Varnashrama Dharma is also an Ishvara Prasada, because I have done in my past lives, I have done so many activities, and because of that, I have been born in a family X, Y, or Z, and that family was X, Y, or Z karma is so and so. I just follow that as Ishvara Prasada. So these are the three things that contribute to three entities that contribute to doership. All the three have to be overcome. This is an introduction to this verse that we are going to do now. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma palaheturbuhu ma te sangostva karmani. There are 4 instructions here. Te karmani eva adhikaraha. Arjuna, your competency is only in action. Phaleshu ma kadachana. But never, your competency is never in the fruits thereof, in the fruits of the action that you have been asked to perform. Ma karma palaheturbuhu. May you not be the source of the fruits of action. I will explain that. There is plenty to cover in there. Mate sangaha astu karmani. All right, if I am not supposed to anticipate or expect any fruit of action, why should I work? The question is, because we are in this domain of Yogakshema, if I have to forsake or not to have any expectation of karma, fruits of karma, why should I even work? Krishna says, no. May you not associate with inaction. May you not have sangha or association with akarma, not doing the action. So these 4 instructions I have described here. You have competency only in action. May you never seek the fruits of action. Don't you be the source of the fruits of action, and may you not abandon prescribed karma. We will study each one of them separately. Now, he said, Krishna, Nistrayar Gunyo Bhava. That means you be free of the 3 gunas. What does the gunas do? A man of tamas ignores prescribed karma. But he still wants the benefits that somebody does by prescribed karma. Whatever they get, he wants to get it. That is because this person is lazy, inert, and his tendency is to shirk work, but he wants the benefits. That is a man characterized by tamas. And a man of rajas, he is very active. He has a lot of energy. He is very active, and he is happy to do the prescribed actions. But he says, I alone have to enjoy the benefits of that. That is the man of rajas. So when I have to enjoy means bhoktrutva is coming. And that need to be overcome. And a man of sattva will engage in prescribed karma without seeking the fruits thereof. A man means a woman also. You know, this is given, but not, somehow we always yes, associate with one gender, and that has become man. It's woman. Wherever there is man, you take it woman also. So a woman of sattva will engage in prescribed karma without seeking the fruits of thereof. So that when you graduate to higher levels of sattva, you automatically recognize the value of becoming Nistrair Gunya, and then he will start doing the work. He will do all the prescribed karma without seeking the fruits thereof. Okay, let's do the your first instruction. You are competent to engage in karma, and you are not competent in the pursuit of jnana. This is for most people. To be able to pursue jnana, you need a certain competency. Just like if you want to do PhD, you should have got a master's or a bachelor's degree. You cannot go from high school to PhD program. This is like this. In the pursuit of jnana, there is a certain competency. And Krishna is telling Arjuna and all of us that we are still not competent in jnana, but we are competent for action. That we will see in this verse very strongly. So competent to work is established by birth. This is only talking with respect to self-realization. We are not talking here competence of work for making a living. That need to be understood. You can study science, or you can study sociology for making a living. That is not we are talking here. The subject matter here is jnana. Sankhya Yoga is what the name of this chapter also. So competence to work is established by birth. So this Varna, this Sankhya, or realization of the self, first step is to follow the Varnashrama Dharma. Sorry. So the seeker is, now we said here, we discussed this little slide earlier. The dharma kama, it can be dharmic karma, kama, or dharmic karma. And then when adharmic karma, we are not talking about here, because adharma, this adharmic karma includes this varnashrama also. Something outside of varnashrama doing is adharmic, or varnashrama falls within, not performing varnashrama falls within adharmic. Varnashrama following falls in the dharmic. And this dharmic you do without expectation of fruits. Without expectation of fruits here, that is the what he is talking here. So that is the competence that we all have. We all have to do this. We all have the competence to do this varnashrama dharma if we decide to, and we have God has given us the intellect, and that's what will come further down the road. Every human being has the intellect, and making the best use of the intellect, he has to decide what to do and what not to do. That is the subject matter here. So the seeker is not deemed competent in actions prohibited in Shastra and must avoid them. When I say seeker, I did not say an individual. So the seeker of spiritual maturity, he must follow the Shastra and do the prescribed karma. A jiva has competence in prescribed karma and does not have the freedom per se in renouncing it. Okay, now I don't like this varnashrama dharma, varnashrama following. I don't like this. Then I want to renounce this. If you say, if you do so, there's a consequence. This is what is called, we call pratyavaya. Anyway, he has competence in prescribed karma, and in the context of seeking spiritual progress, he does not have the freedom per se in renouncing it. Renouncing prescribed karma is a missed opportunity for self-realization. That goes without saying, because when we renounce prescribed karma, we are in this adharmic zone, and in the adharmic zone, we do not accumulate enough samskaras for self-realization. We do not accumulate any samskaras for self-realization. So that renouncing prescribed karma is not in the interest of the spiritual growth. And then there is one other thing. It may so happen that an individual may not have the capability or resources in efficiently executing the actions he desires to. I want to become a lawyer means I should have prepared myself in my high school and college days with subject matters like humanities, law, the language, like this. Those are all certain skills required to become a lawyer. So to become a lawyer, you have to equip yourself. And if I have not equipped myself with those resources, what I want to do, see, when you want to do something, there is a whole field you think about, and I want that because that your desire motivated. But I may not have the resources to do that efficiently also. So that's another issue, because in the Varnashrama specification, you are matched to the family that you most deserve and you are competent. This is a very vast, comprehensively described in our Shastras, that our birth is not an accident. Our birth is, at the time of my current life, at the time of my death, all my karmas come into picture. And then I select, I am the person who selects what karma I want to fructify in my next life. So when I want to fructify what karma, then the burden is on the Lord. We say in Puranas, Chitragupta. Chitragupta is the account keeper. So he is the accountant. So what all possibilities are there for, he has a database, let us say. And then I want to fulfill this, fructify this karma. When I say, then what are possible? If I want to do this, I should not be a burden to the family that I'm going into. They should also deserve to have me. If I want to have my parents, as much as they deliver value to me, I have to deliver value to them also. That's the basic philosophy in matching birth, rebirth. So that is where when I have decided to fructify certain actions, I may not have skills in other than what that will land me, what birth that will land, that karma will land me. And if I, out of desire, want to do something else, I may not have the resources to do that. Therefore, Krishna is saying, Karmani eva adhikaraha te, karmani eva adhikaraste. Now, let's go to the next one. He says, may you not covet the fruits of actions as you engage in karma, either before doing karma, or during karma, or after completing karma. Shankaracharya is very precise in describing this, that you may never seek the fruits of action anytime. Now, let's see what this means. Now, I don't have the ability to determine the fruits of actions for my karmas. Why? See, we can extrapolate from our business life, our professional life itself. I only do a part of a project. Now, I can only do what my skills allows me to do. So many other people have to do so many things for the project to be complete. Now you look at this, my needs or my desire for certain fruits of action with respect to all other people in the organization. Let's take at the end of every year, every corporation has set aside X number of dollars, depending on how much profit they made. They set aside certain equity. They set aside some, say, $1 million or something like that. They set aside for salary increases. Now that salary increase is distributed to whatever the number of employees in the organization, depending on their contribution. Now, if I want a certain fruit of action in my professional life, I am competing with so many other people. There are so many other factors being involved. I may not get what all fruits I want. See, the same thing applies here also, that there is whatever fruit of action has to be in synchronization with the cosmos. That is and who has that knowledge of the cosmos? That authority is empowered in Ishvara. Ishvara is the one who is capable of having a macro view, and he is the one that can determine what is the fruit of action for me. And accordingly, I will get a birth. No, a human being has no ability to dictate the fruits of action. A couple of examples are given in the commentaries here. Now, I can sow the seed as a farmer, and it is my right and my competence. I know how to sow the seeds in the field. I prepare the ground, and I sow the seeds. I take all necessary, activities into effect, and I complete the sowing. But whether do I get a crop or not depends on so many other factors on which I have no control at all. Therefore, a human being, an individual, has no ability to dictate the fruits of action. But like in this case of seeds, then rain, wind, heat, all contribute to the growth of grains. On the farmer, he has no control. The same thing when you write an exam, you think you have done well, but so many times there are factors beyond you that you don't get what you expect. So bottom line is, only Ishvara has the macro view, and he determines the appropriate karma phala and when it is to be enjoyed by the jiva. This is also very important. See, my schedule, my time frame for fruits of action may not be the time frame for Ishvara's schedule, in his schedule. So my schedule has to sync with Ishvara's schedule, means I have to be his devotee. Just like we see this in politics playing out every time. Only with the goodwill of the person you are serving do you get generally what you expect. Otherwise, you don't. So, therefore, Krishna is saying, Ma phaleshu kadachana. You don't have the competence, or you don't have the ability to write your own karma phala. Now, if you should further say, I want to indulge in that, Krishna says, Ma karma phala hetu bhuho. Don't be the source of fruits of your own action. If you pray for the fruits of action, you become the source of the fruits of action. How? Because I do a sankalpa and I want this fruit, this fruit, this fruit. And I do all the actions required perfectly. Then I am entitled to that karma phala. And I'm entitled to that karma phala, then I become the source of the fruits of action. By becoming the source of the fruits of action, I am putting in there both kartrutva and bhoktrutva. So Krishna is warning against that. Don't you be the cause of the fruits of action. Because the motivated actions, desire motivated actions, necessarily when the actions are performed, the actions have to bear fruit, then you become cause of the generation of the fruits of action. And you become subject to rebirth, because you have to enjoy those fruits of action. And to enjoy that, you may not be able to do it in this body, in today's, where I am today. I will have to take another birth, and which is that rebirth itself is an expression of the fruit of action. I just said earlier what happens at the time of death, and then you get a rebirth. So Krishna is therefore discouraging such ownership of karma phala. Here, kartrutva, bhoktrutva are both included, and particularly owning the karma phala is bhoktrutva. And I want to enjoy that fruit of action itself is anti to karma yoga, to spiritual growth, and therefore he says desire-free actions do not accrue such fruits of action. So if you do actions without any desire, there is no imprint. There is no imprint associated with that action. And when there is no imprint associated, there is per se no fruits of action that can be assigned to you. The fruits of action happens. The Lord gives the fruits of action, but it is not assigned to your desire, and therefore that has no, he can give it whenever, or whatever it is that doesn't have a rebirth, let us say. He can do it in this life itself, that fruit of action. Therefore, Krishna is saying, Ma karma pala hetu. Don't you be the cause of your fruits of action. Finally, if the fruit of action itself is not to be desired, all right, we just briefly touched on this. We'll explain a little more on that. And there is no motivation for me to engage in action, but action itself is painful. I have to physically indulge my body, and in that the body gets a lot of pain here and there. Krishna says you have to bear it. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha. So all the actions give have happiness and pain, but you bear it. He says the sahana. So should you argue so? Arjuna, Krishna is reading Arjuna's mind, and he is saying all these instructions. So if you should think there is no need for action itself because action is painful and anyway I'm not going to go get a benefit out of it, if you think, should you argue so, may you not be attached to that inaction. Meaning, may you not be pleased in inaction. He comes later on, it comes, you cannot be inactive at all. You'll have to be as every human being, every second of existence has to be doing some work. That's the nature of the body. So we will see that in the 3rd chapter in the Karma Yoga. The abandonment of prescribed actions is a violation of his competency. Okay, I don't act anything means if you do that, it's a violation of his competency. Now I am hired in a company to do a certain prescribed actions. If I don't show up at work and do something else at my desk, that gets noticed. That gets noticed by the very fact that you are not giving progress report of your actions, and that has a certain consequence. That is a violation of my competency. I'm hired to do certain things, but I am not doing it. That's a violation of my competency. Likewise, the abandonment of prescribed actions in our life is also a violation of my competency that I have earned to get this life. See, that particular action has come because I have to experience the fruits of action of the past life, and I don't do that, I'm violating that competency. Finally, a man cannot evolve spiritually without engaging in prescribed karma, because karma yoga is a competency possible only in performing prescribed karmas. Now, we have said earlier that karma yoga is the first step in terms of spiritual growth. Now, I don't do any action itself. How can I even be qualifying for karma yoga? To qualify for karma yoga, I have to do the action. Therefore, only in prescribing the actions do I engage in, do I become a candidate for karma yoga. But if I do that with the spirit of, that I have to do with the spirit of as an offering to God. Once again, I bring this particular slide here. So we have to operate in this narrow zone in order to be a candidate for karma yoga. Now, this is Krishna's model. Karma yoga is the first step of self-realization. That's what he has first started saying in the 38th verse. Sukha dukkhe samaya krutva labha labho jaya jayo. In there, he has started with karma yoga introduction in there, and then he talks about karma yoga. Eshate bhita sankhe buddhir yoget mam shunu buddhya yukta yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. So he has already said those terms. So mate sangosta karmani. May you not give up the prescribed karma that is prescribed to you. Now the question comes. All right, I have to engage in karma. I have to engage in karma without any motivation. You know, if there's a motivation, I know how to engage in karma. But without motivation, how is one to engage in karma? That Krishna says, I will tell you. Yes, in the next verse, he will start that. Yogastha kuru karmani. Oh, sorry, I think we have to, let me go backwards a little. Let us learn this verse. Karmani eva adhikara.
Karmani eva adhikara. Karmani eva adhikara.
Sorry, we take that together with te. Karmani eva adhikara te.
Karmani eva adhikara te. Karmani eva adhikara te.
Ma paleshu kadachana.
Ma phaleshu kadachana. Ma phaleshu kadachana.
Karmanyevadhikaraste. Ma paleshu kadachana.
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन
मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः.
मा कर्म फल हेतु भूः मा कर्म फल हेतु भूः
मा ते संगः अस्तु कर्मणि.
मा ते संगः कर्मणि
अकर्मणि.
अकर्मणि मा ते संगस्तु अकर्मणि
मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः. मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि.
मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन. मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः. मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि.
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्म फल हेतुर्भुः मा ते संगोस्त्वकर्मणि
45 to 47. त्रैगुण्य विषया वेदाः निस्त्रैर्गुण्यो भवार्जुन. निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्. यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके. तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते Ma paleshu kadachana ma karma pala heturbuh ma te sangostva karmani. Now, this verse is the most quoted verse, and maybe it's also not well understood verse also. This is in the context of, as I said, spiritual evolution. And now, I see in the current world, in the current economy, we don't have this choice of even doing prescribed activities, the Varna system of activities. We are drifted away from that. Now, are we not, are we not paying a price for that? Yes, we are paying a price. That's because of our own past activities to be born in these times. And this has not, as I said in the last, I think a couple of classes ago, I said, we have paved the way for this to be born at this time. And we will have to accept. But I cannot do Varnashrama Dharma for a living. Then I cannot do Varnashrama for spiritual growth. But I have to do some activity which is beside the Varnashrama. I spend all my time making a living out of my other non-Varnashrama activities. I'm at a disadvantage. Yes, we are at a disadvantage. These changes have not happened overnight. We are not totally in this life responsible for where we are, but we have built our record, our file, such that we are born in this time, and to the best extent possible, along with our activities for a living, professional activities for a living, somewhere along the line, we have to cultivate voluntary activities that are prescribed in our Varnashrama. Maybe we have a chance in the next life to be in a better environment. That's about the best we can say. We are in a dichotomy. Per se, we cannot engage in Varnashrama Dharma in today's economy. So, as I said in the last class, this is the Varnashrama Dharma is a spiritual economy. Today we are in a different kind of economy, and for that economy, we cannot survive doing Varnashrama Dharma, because Varnashrama Dharma depends very much on the cottage industry also. In today's world, we don't have that kind of activities. So there is a disadvantage. But we can, recognizing what Krishna is saying, we can make some amends to our living. May not be totally Varnashrama Dharma, but some part of it we can practice at our voluntary level, and that's about the best we can hope for in this life. Okay, so so if one is to engage in karma without motivation, how is one to engage in karma? He describes in the next verse. Yogastaha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. This is the first step. Now, in the in 3 verses, Krishna describes karma yoga in 3 different ways. 248 is one, 250 is a second verse that describes karma yoga feature, and 253 is another verse. So 248, 250, and 253 are very important verses for karma yoga, understanding karma yoga. Arjuna, siddhi asiddhayoho samaha bhutva, being equally disposed of in success or failure. We already, we know that we do not get sometimes the results we want. There are 4 outcomes we'll see in the next slide. So whatever happens, whether you succeed or not succeed, you treat them you treat them equal. Samaha bhutva. When you start treating them as equal, in not being sullen if you fail, not being very elated when you are successful, that you have to give up. That's the starting point. He says, because he says, Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity is said to be yoga. This is the definition of karma yoga. One definition of karma yoga coming out of this verse. So Samatvam yoga uchyate. Sangam tyaktva yogastaha kuru karmani. So how should you, summarizing this, he says, Sangam tyaktva, giving up attachment. See this samatva, samabhutva, he says, that can only be possible if you give up attachment in the outcome of the activities. If you are expecting so much and you don't get all that, you become sullen. Otherwise, you don't expect anything. Suddenly, you get some outcome, then you are elated. So that he says, give up that attachment. Because we have attachment to the outcome of action, that up and down happens. He says, give up that sangam tyaktva yogastaha kuru karmani. So perform duties in the attitude of yoga. In the attitude of yoga means in the attitude of equanimity. So equanimity is the attitude that is being taught in this verse. That is the definition of karma yoga in this, as described in this verse. So this is the overall message of this verse. Now let's see. So any action that we take, the outcome falls into one of these four categories. That's all. There cannot be any fifth one. These are the four outcomes of a possible action. Outcome as expected. I work 8 hours a day. I get paid at whatever the hourly rate is, and the outcome is expected. My job is to do the work, and the benefit I have to get is X number of dollars or whatever the denomination is. So that is outcome as expected. Now, outcome exceeds expectations. Sometimes this happens. I say like you apply for a federal funds for a project, and they like your project, and they thought there is more to this project than you have suggested. Then they will say, okay, you do this also, we'll give you more money in the project. That happens sometimes. So that outcome exceeds expectation. That's a second one. Outcome falling short of expectation. This also happens so many times. You do certain things, but you get not the full benefit, you get partial benefit. Like same, I can say you work all through the year expecting you will get a promotion. But next year you don't get promotion because there is somebody else also is competing for that. So the company recognizes that, but they both have performed well, and therefore they give one person promotion, another person they give a lump sum award or something like that. So it's a outcome falling short of expectation. It happens in all our activities. And the fourth outcome is a total failure. You don't get anything out of that. You apply for a federal, let us say this happens in the Defense Department very much. Many of these companies like Boeing, and there is other competitors, Martin Marietta, like this. They all apply for sometimes for a federal contract. And this is they can only have one company do the job. Not you're talking something like millions of dollars, hundreds of even billions of dollars. So they hire one company to do, and the other company doesn't get anything. So they're just totally left out. So that is the case of the outcome is a total failure. You don't get anything for that. And I can quote an example. My son-in-law was working for a company in Blacksburg. this company was doing with a certain maintenance management job for one of the defense production facilities. And next time when he was there, and it came up for renewal. And when the renewal, the company did not get renewal, they just let go people, many of them, and some people they, they reallocated them to different places like that. So this is a very usual, normal occurrence in the Defense Department contracts. You get all or you get nothing. So those are the 4 kinds of outcomes, and we see that in all our activities. And that too, in this, these are to be taken in the context of spiritual growth. And in order to take this in the context of spiritual growth, both spiritual goal, how to handle it, that's the subject matter of this verse. Engage in the action, in the attitude of yoga. Yogastaha kur karmani. What is yoga here? To start with, you have to do actions in the service of Ishvara, to please Ishvara. Anytime I want to do it for myself, I cannot be, I cannot have equanimity. Equanimity is the attitude of yoga that is being taught. So you detach from the fruits of action, he said. How do you detach? You offer everything to Ishvara. If one is able to offer it to his neighbor, well and good. That is also Ishvara. But we don't have that attitude yet. So at least we can develop the attitude of to please Ishvara. Because Ishvara is the one who has the power to grant success or failure. It is in his control. So you offer it as a service to Ishvara. Like at work, what we do, we please our boss. Activity, whatever action I am doing, I'm not doing for myself. I'm doing for the company. That, you see, when we recognize that, it's easy to translate that to do actions in the service of Ishvara. So without attachment in the action of fruits, that attitude of may Ishvara be pleased. Now, it's one thing that you do in the service of Ishvara, he has to be pleased by that also. He has to be pleased only if you are in the domain of Dharma. So that is the action that you have to do that will please him. So how do you do that? Renounce preoccupation in the actions and the fruits of action. I have to do this. I have to become a lawyer. I have to become a doctor. That's the preoccupation we all have at a certain age. So that, and then I have to become a lawyer or a doctor, and I have to make so much money. That's the fruit of action I expecting. Give up this. That's what Krishna says. Renounce this preoccupation. Absence of delight. This will, what's the benefit? Absence of delight or grief. You are in samatva. You are being a samatvam yoga uchate. You get to that equanimity. So the third one is equanimity in success or failure. So when that happens, and this is an intellectual exercise. This is not any other part of me is engaged. It's an intellectual exercise. Intellectually, I have to manage my vyavasayatmika buddhi, he said. That's what we have to invoke here. An intellect that is managed and cultivated can accept success and failure equally. I have to tell I have to separate myself out of my intellect and say, okay, take it easy. We say this word, take it easy. So we have to tell our mind, take it easy. This happens or this happens, take it easy. And this is best achieved when you don't select the karma that you want to engage. And you don't select the karma and you don't have an anticipation of the fruits of karma. That is the best situation for getting equanimity in success or failure. Anytime I have an attachment to the action, that action or the fruits thereof, equanimity is almost impossible. So he is saying, don't be selective in what karma you do. Continuing. So without the motivation of fruits, there are two possibilities here. Siddhi or success. We went through the four outcomes. So those are combined here for two. Siddhi or success, acquisition of knowledge born through purification of mind. Now, how the Siddhi success happens because you have trained your knowledge, your mind through purification of mind. Because what is purification of mind? You are focused on the job itself. You are not focused on distractions that could impede the work that you do. That is how Siddhi happens. If Siddhi has to happen, if you have to be successful, we have to focus on the job, not on the outcome of the job. That's being said here. Asiddhi or failure, non-acquisition of knowledge without the purification of mind. If I am always hankering after the fruits of the action, I am devoting less time in the act itself. Quality time I am not investing in the action, and therefore without that quality time I invested in the action, failure is more likely. So Krishna is saying here is you train your mind such that you do the entire you put quality time into your action, and then whatever comes, treat it equally. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. This is the first step we have to take with respect to cultivating karma yoga. So samatvam yoga uchyate is a definition of yoga as defined in this. This equanimous attitude in Siddhi and Asiddhi is yoga. The consequence is a product of practice. So when I say consequence is a product of practice, the consequence of getting success or failure and treating that as samatva, that is a product of practice. I have to practice this. It doesn't come just like that. I have to work at it, and by working at it equally, I will achieve samatva, and that is yoga. That's it. Yes. Let us learn this. Yogastaha kuru karmani.
Yogastaha kuru karmani. Yogastaha kuru karmani.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Yogastaha kuru karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Yogastaha kuru karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Yogastaha kuru karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Yogastaha kuru karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Siddhi asidhyo samaha bhutva.
Siddhi asidhyoho samah bhutva. Siddhi asidhyoho samah bhutva.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Siddhya siddhyoho samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva. Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Yogastaha kuru karmani. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Siddhya Siddhyo Samo Bhutva Samatvam Yoga Uchyate.
योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्योः समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्योः समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्योः समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते
46 to 48. Yavanartha udapane sarvatah samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah karmanyevadhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturpuhu ma te sangostva karmani yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Next verse. Durena hyavarang karma buddhi yoga dhananjaya buddhau sharanamannvicha kripanaha palahetavaha. Now he is describing people who don't undertake to samatva, or people who don't undertake to karma yoga, the people who undertake actions for desire fulfillment. Dhananjaya is collector of wealth, amasser of wealth. Karmaha buddhi yoga durena avaram. He says actions motivated by desire is very much inferior to karma yoga. Durena, by a long distance. You know, if you are in a running race or something like that, they normally some races are very, very close, but in some races, the winner is so far ahead. We say that is Durena. So this Karma Yoga is far inferior. I mean, the action, the desire motivated action is far inferior to Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is far ahead of desire motivated action. Where in spiritual growth, that we have to understand. Buddhau Sharanam Anu Icha. Seek in and submit to equanimous intellect. He says, so two messages are here, two instructions. You have to seek to become equanimous, and then to do that, you have to train your intellect. Seek in and submit to equanimous intellect. The mind has to be trained to calm you down. That is what Buddha Sharanamannvicha means. He kripanaha phalahetavaha. He says fruit seekers are indeed piteous. They are pitiable. Why he's saying is this pitiable is not with respect to this life, because they have to undergo in transmigration again and again and again. Whenever you desire a fruit of action, there is a consequence, and the consequence is rebirth. That is the message or the sentiment behind telling them they are pitiable. So this is the, we will take up this in the, well, maybe I'll do this, maybe time, because sometimes there will be no questions. Okay, karma, we will do that if it will go a few minutes more if you want. Karma pala motivated actions are far inferior to actions in Buddhi Yoga. This is the first statement he said. Now, why is it inferior? Motivated karma cannot transcend dualities. You know, you are always in the up and down. Sometimes you are elated, sometimes you are sullen. That you can never be in samatva. You can never be transcending these dualities. So when you are attached to your karma, what happens? The consequence is birth and death. You are bonded, the karma is bonded, karma bandha, they say. The karma is bonded to birth and death, which is transient in nature. You come and go. Every time there is no, you're not building up anything for yourself. You are just following somebody's directive. You don't have freedom. I become a slave of the karma that I do. Therefore, seek and take refuge in that mature karma attitude, yoga attitude, for it leads you to supreme knowledge. So the karma that I have to do should be such that it helps me stabilize. And how can I do that? Yoga attitude. So you have to practice this yoga attitude. Mind united with intellect comes closer to Atma. So when you, in the hierarchy of the association with Atma, see the sense organs, as a sense objects are the farthest out. Sense organs are a little more closer to Atma. Then the mind is a little more closer, and the intellect is still closer to Atma, because it is the Atma, the intellect is the subtlest part of our body, and that subtlest is very close to the even subtler Atma. But mind is not as subtle as intellect. Therefore, mind united with intellect, you become, you try to get your mind associated with intellect, then you come closer to Atma. So mind integrated with intellect will not be swayed by sense organs. Says this so many times, I see this, I want this. But if my mind is integrated with intellect, intellect says that is not going to be helpful to you. You will have to, like once I have knowledge, the intellect is smart enough to tell, that is not good for you. That is going to give you the bondage of karma. So don't do it. And when that happens, then I'm taking refuge in that mature karma. I do things that the intellect guides me, and not just what the sense organs direct me. That's the difference. So the mind comes between the sense organs and the intellect. Now I can align my mind with the sense organs and go after the sense organs, going after sense objects, or I can align my mind closer to intellect. And Krishna is suggesting that you bring your mind closer to the intellect, not to the sense organs. So engaging in desire-motivated karma is pitiable, he says, because he's drowning more and more in samsara. For every desire-motivated fruit, we already said, ma karma pala heturbu, we said, why? Because it brings you the cycle of birth and death. So he says, because he's drowning more and more in samsara, that is a pitiable state. If somebody fails, oh, so sorry, we say. See, that's the exactly what Krishna is saying here. So Shankaracharya, he quotes an example from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. There Gargi is instructed, he who departs this land without realizing this imperishable is pitiable. This is a statement from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And so Krishna says, Kripanaha Palahetava, invoking this. So what Krishna is saying is, this life you have, if you don't leave this world without realizing Atma, you are pitiable, and that includes all of us in today's world, unfortunately. So now you listen to me. What the person engaged in his prescribed duties with the attitude of equanimity will acquire. Okay. Now he says, I have given you this Durena Hevarankamma Buddhi Yoga Dhananjaya. Now I will tell you why you have to go the other way. The attitude of equanimity, why you have to go that way, I will tell you. Next, we will read it and stop there today. Buddhi yukto jatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmat yogaya yujyasva yoga karma kaushalam. Okay, let me get this. Stop sharing.
Ramakrishna,
We are open for questions.
we didn't repeat 49, Ramakrishna.
49. Oh no, this is only. Oh, we didn't learn that verse. Okay, we'll do that next class.
Okay.
We'll learn that 49th verse and then move on to the 50th.
I have a question, Krishna.
Sure.
Yeah, I have two questions actually. Can you explain a little bit more about yoga and kshema when you were mentioning it?
Okay. Yoga is acquiring what I don't have.
Okay.
I have a home. I was living in an apartment. I always wanted to live in a home,
Okay.
in my own home. This is the dream of everyone.
Okay.
So, acquiring the home is a yoga. What you did not have, you acquire, that is yoga. Now, once you buy the house, you have moved in, you have to have home insurance, you have to have termite insurance, and anything goes wrong, you have to fix it. That is kshema.
Okay. Maintenance.
Maintenance, protecting, that more than maintenance, protecting.
Kshema
Protecting
is more like
something that you already have is kshema.
kshema. Yoga
Acquiring
is
what you don't have is yoga.
okay. And second question is when you say source of don't go after the source of fruits of action, is it little? I think I'm a little bit confused with that. Source of fruits of action.
Okay, source of there are two ways. If you do with the desire motivation,
Yes.
you become the source of the action, the source of the fruit of action, because you want it, and you will get it somewhere. As long as you do the karma in a prescribed way, you will get the fruit of action.
Okay.
Maybe today, maybe tomorrow.
Okay.
So you have become the source of action. Now, if you do action without the desire, Ishvara becomes the source of fruits of action.
Okay. So source of fruits of action is, in other words, is same as the desire motivated action.
When you desire for it, it becomes the source of action, source of fruit of action. You want it.
Thank you.
I have a question on accumulation.
I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Have you unmuted?
Yeah, unmuted. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. All our life when we worked before, it was always, this job, that job. Go to take another job. It pays higher salary and what else and whatnot. That come under accumulation of health. We talked in one of these shlokas.
Say that again.
Accumulation of wealth.
Yes.
Is that not what we did in our younger days while working?
Yes.
So then here, accumulation of wealth is not good. but we did it for a purpose. So why it is bad and why it is not bad?
See, accumulation of wealth is, in a way, what Krishna is saying is that leads you to more desire and anger, all that we will study that in the 62nd verse, 62 and 63. The desire will never end. The desire will continue to, if you get to what you desire, then you are enabled more, you are empowered more. Oh, I can get more, I can desire for more, and I will get more. Somewhere along the line, that equation drops off. That doesn't work. Because I will start desiring for more than my capacity to do the karma to get it. Then I get angry. So accumulation of wealth for what? If you are living for for this life only, then accumulation of wealth may be okay. But if you are living for self-realization, it is against the objective of self-realization.
But did we all not did that for an intention to make sure that the children get proper education, go to some preferred colleges, and what else and what not?
See, that has been our ignorance, not from today, from time immemorial. That's the ignorance our parents taught us.
Then parents have not done their duty if they don't do that.
Their parents taught the same thing. Anadi avidya. It is not today's problem.
Okay.
See, even to this day, what do parents want? They want you to get married and have children. Is that spiritually acceptable? So this anadi avidya, and I'll give another example. If a son says, "I'll become a sannyasi," mother will become very upset.
Right.
Yeah, that's why for it to become a sannyasi, you have to get approval of your mother. You may not get approval of your father, but you have to get approval of your mother. The Shastra is very tight on that. Muda jahihi dhanagama trishnam kuru sadbodhyam manasi vitrishnam yallabasenja karmopatam vittam tena vinodaya chittam. You don't go after money. You work. Whatever you get, that's what here he says. Yallabase nija karmopatam. Whatever you get by doing honest work, enjoy it. That spirituality does not say don't enjoy life. But you train your mind to be focused on the spirituality also as you work for a living.
Okay.
Ramakrishna ji, question on the, not going back to the Varnashrama, but the question is regarding the Karma Yoga in the current time, right? I know we don't
Talking
have,
in the background, will you mute, please? Okay, go ahead.
are you able to hear me, Ramakrishna ji?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
So I know we are not in the Varnashrama period, but this Bhagavad Gita, if we follow the Karma Yoga as specified by Krishna, and we work towards desire, not desire motivated action, and we do the work as if it is service to Ishvara,
Yes.
we get the same benefit of what you are working in the Varnashrama period also?
See, that is a little difficult to expect that way. But what it will do is this. If whatever activity you are doing now as a Ishwararpana Buddhi, now you have got those skills, then in your next life, you may get an opportunity to apply those skills in the Varnashrama. You will be born at a time when, see, all these skills that you have developed, the skills of attitude of yoga, samatva, doing your activities of profession, let us say, then you have developed those skills, and those skills are stored in your chitta as impressions, right? And then in the next life, you may get, like a life where you can practice Varnashrama Dharma also, and you get to apply these skills. See, what is Karma Yoga? We said three parts. Kartrutva, in Kartrutva itself, there are three aspects. The desire to do a certain action, doing the action, and the fruits of action. You have selected the action that you want to do, so that one has is not satisfied. But doing the second and three, with the attitude of Karma Yoga, you have successfully mastered two of the three. Now, for this, the reward is you may get a life where you fulfill the first part also by applying the same skills that you have learned in a Varnashrama Dharma. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yep, that makes sense. So it is not, since we have not learned the dharma, is that the reason we are not able to understand and execute it correctly? Is it the dharma is the issue? What is dharma?
See, dharma is, definitely for everyone, there is a prescribed action, right? That is dharma.
Mm.
See, why is that dharma important? I'll tell you. See, dharma by itself doesn't stand by itself, but dharma is a rita, satya, dharma. There is a rita is an absolute truth. Satya is vocalizing the truth. Dharma is walking the truth. When you align your actions with the vocalized truth, which is embedded in the absolute truth, then you are aligning all your activities with respect to that absolute truth. That is Varna Dharma, and that is what is being aligned with spiritually. But if you do adharma, then adharma is anything that is not prescribed is adharma per se, in a spiritual sense. We are all very, let us say we abide by the laws of the state we live in and all those things. What does it get you? It gets you freedom from being punished because I'm following the law. But that does not give you freedom from rebirth. To get freedom from rebirth, you have to align with that absolute truth, because absolute truth is the only one that has freedom from rebirth. Everything else is transient, keeps coming and going. The absolute truth, Atma, remains permanent. It is the Shashwata. And that's what Krishna is saying. Align yourself with that absolute truth to get to the truth, absolute truth. And aligning itself is the dharma.
Understood. Dhanyavad.
This is, when you go to a public speech discourse, Swamijis and all, they don't really discuss this in this detail, because they belong to an organization, and the organization has certain rules, this Ramakrishna Ashrama went to court to get certified that they are not, they said they are not even a Hindu organization. There was a case, they went to the court about being recognized as a Hindu organization and getting certain, not getting certain perks, let us put it that way. So they went to the court and they said we are not a Hindu organization. So this is at an organization level, there is some dilution. You know, you can do, you can select any activity you want and do it with the, you know, since we are not in the domain of doing the Varnashrama Dharma, let us do what we are doing now in the spirit of Karma Yoga. Value is always there, and next time somewhere along the line you will get another opportunity to apply these skills in that Varnashrama Dharma. There is some amount of my speculation also in there. Let me qualify it that way, but it's logical. Because there is no way to unearth all these things, but it will come down to us as we do. This is why, you know, like we have to do the activities that we need to do in that spirit, and that has some benefit. And that benefit will take us to a birth where I am more aligned with absolute truth than away from it.
Understood.
Any other questions? Sure.
Ramakrishna, the question I had, there were two questions. One was, this is my favorite topic.
Hearing you. You are being lost.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So this is my favorite topic, Varnashrama Dharma, as you know. So
Favorite or anti-favorite?
anti. Anyway, the question was, so you said that if you are born into that Varna, that particular Varnashram, so that takes away, and you do that work that is required of that Varna, it takes away that, what did you say, Kartutva, right?
Yeah, it takes away one aspect of Kartrutva, yes.
Okay, but what if you're not good at it? Like, for example, if I'm born into a tailor caste, you know, tailoring, and I'm not a good tailor, but I'm a good jeweler.
Yeah, that's where that is where if you follow that, if your father followed it, your grandfather followed it, then they train you.
Yeah, they train you, but even then, you know, you come across so many stories in our culture about people who were in a particular born in a particular caste, and they were not good at it, and you know, they were at a loss.
See, when I don't like to use the word caste, because caste has no relevance. In the caste is a somehow invented word by the Europeans, trying to not able to understand the rebirth.
Okay, all right.
Came from their philosophy of one birth, and they somehow pigeonholed people to this caste thing. In the Varnashrama Dharma, you will be born to a family that practices a certain Varnashrama Dharma, and your skills will match the skills that are being taught in that family. That's the matching that happens. Just like you are in the medical school today, you come out of the medical school, you are matched with respect to doing residency with a certain hospital or something like that, where there is a matching of interest between the hospital and the student. Like that, in the rebirth, there is a matching of interest, matching of skills between the child and the parents. This is what I said earlier. The parents should deserve the child. I said, if you recall that, I said, birth is not an accident. The child should deserve the parents. The parents should deserve the child. Not only parents and child, it even extends to your brothers and sisters.
Okay. The other question was, like, if you're born into a Shudra caste, sorry, not caste, into Shudra Varna, Shudra Varnashram. The Shudras, they are not allowed to, read the Vedas and have access to Vedas according to the Varnashrama. How is a person who's born as a Shudra able to study the scriptures like Krishna, Sri Krishna is talking about? And how are they going to get moksha?
All right. The answer is this: Veda is not meant. What it meant. Veda is not the only source of knowledge. You have the Ramayana, Mahabharata are case studies of Veda. Okay, Ramayana and Mahabharata, everybody has right ability to read and understand and follow that. That is the Shishtachara they call. That is easy for them to understand and follow that. Veda per se is there to be able to be available to every generation of coming forward. Now there are two. One is you have to learn the Veda, and you should have the ability to teach it to the next generation. If you don't have those skills, the Veda will perish.
I'm talking about the Shudra. How will a Shudra have access to education?
I said the education through Ramayana and Mahabharata.
They're not allowed to read or write or go to school. Shudras were not allowed.
You can hear. Nobody stops you from hearing what you want to hear.
Okay, so you can just hear as a Shudra.
You can learn. The Katha Shravana happening all over India in every aspect of every part of country, and Katha Shravana, you follow that.
And that's what you're supposed to do as a Shudra.
Hinduism has not left any group of people from acquiring knowledge and getting realization. Even a Shudra, this Ramayana, Mahabharata, what is taught there, and getting. I talked about the who is that? Last class we talked about who is that? Raikwa is a Shudra, but he was a Brahmagyani. The king, who is a Kshatriya, went and fell on his feet. So yeah, there are many cases like that.
No, so many Europeans also read Vedas, so there is no prohibition that they cannot read. So if Europeans also, they have written so many commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. So many Europeans have written Bhagavad Gita.
We're not talking about the Europeans. We're talking about the Varnashrama.
See, why do you have to study Veda to apply it in your life?
Right.
There is no reason to for you to study medicine and not apply it. There is an absolute waste of time. Like that, Veda, if you are if you are not, like let's say, competent to do the work that is prescribed in the Veda, why should you be, studying Veda? The society, our rishis did not put a burden on you to, giving exemption from studying Vedas. This applies to women also. Let me say this. See.
Women also.
I'll take the case of the woman. That makes it easier. Okay. Now, if you don't study, if you are required to do Vedic karma, all right, then you have to do it without a break. Now, a woman, there are certain conditions of studying it, And a woman cannot study Vedas or practice the karma that is in the Vedas. Having a child, if your child, 6-month-old child is crying, should you be attending to your 6-month-old child or should you be doing Sandhya Vandana?
You can do both. The child is not crying all the time.
The child is crying out until 6 or 7, 8 years. If you have 3 or 4 kids, see, even today, let's see, you are talking from a hypothetical case. Are you doing what you are supposed to do even?
Yes, the best of my ability. So I feel like if I as a woman have to do a certain amount of spiritual work in terms of karma yoga, that itself is,
Then
that-
Bhagavad Gita, then you are not eligible for Bhagavad Gita. That's all.
why is that?
Because they see you have to look at it from a not from an individual perspective. You have to look at it from a global perspective. And then if you say you as an individual can do, you have 6 children and attend all the 6 children and do all the karmas that are in the Vedas, you will be so stressed out in life. The Vedas says, our Rishi says, you know, like you're exempt from doing this. If you are exempt from doing Vedic karma, if you are exempt from doing it, then there is no need to study Vedas.
Yeah, but not all women opt for becoming mothers of 6 children, Ramakrishna ji. There may be women who want to opt for the sannyasi path, the ascetic path.
For them, there is no restriction on studying Veda, Gargi, okay, Maitreya. So there are exceptions. Exceptions are not the rule. That's why I said from a global perspective, 99.9% of the women, if you call, cannot handle both. And so the less stress on them to do. And again, whatever karma you do, you are cooking, even that cooking can be a worship. When you are given that option, what is the, when you want to, then if you want to say, I want to study Veda, I want to study Veda, then you are attaching yourself to the Sankalpa Kartrutva and you will not move forward.
I do not agree.
Okay, then you are welcome to not disagree with me. There is no, I cannot say something that I have not learned.
Yes, Ramakrishna ji, that's
So
fine.
I have to be honest to
Forgive me.
what I say, and what I say is what is in the scriptures.
But that is your interpretation, Ramakrishna ji.
Not my interpretation. I think I want you to take it back. This is an argument you have had with me many times. Today I am telling you, I don't interpret anything that is coming out of me. Not a word, not a word. I know it is not, if it is not palatable for you, you cannot put the blame on me that I am not interpreting it correctly.
No. What I meant to say, and I apologize, is that, there are several interpretations of our scriptures by different groups of people. And maybe, you have this interpretation of one group of people. That's what I meant. And I apologize for sounding, I do not mean to be disrespectful. That's all.
Disrespecting me is not an issue. Okay. Okay. So if you are not satisfied with my interpretation, I don't force you to hold my interpretation.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's close
Thank
this. And then if you have any questions offline, you can. I don't want to disturb a lot of people. Then we will do the closing prayer, and then we will, if there's an issue, we can do it. You can call me anytime. That's fine.
Yes, Ramakrishna ji. Sorry.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ramakrishna ji.
Thank you.